Hey everyone, today we are joined by comic book legend Jimmy Palmiotti. How you doing?
All right, good. I like that you pronounced my name correctly. That is it's like getting a gift these days.
I've been practicing all day.
That's why he does the openings. I'm terrible with names. Brian always gets the
Uh,
openings right. So, what do you have going on right now? Anything new coming out that we could
yeah,
look at?
so I do a monthly book for Todd McFarlane, the guys at Image. It's called Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger, and
Uh-huh.
it's basically Todd's been doing the book for the past 5 years, the Gunslinger, which is basically a Spawn type character from the Old West that is in modern day.
Yeah.
Um, so he hired me to write the character as if it was still in the middle of the 1800s. And that's what this book is right here. Deadly Tales of Gunslinger. So that comes out monthly,
Nice.
and it's on issue 5.
Okay.
So happy about that. And I also have another book called Pop Kill that number 3 just came out. The beautiful Adam Hughes cover on it.
Yeah, it's a good cover. I saw it online.
Yeah, he's terrific. And that's a 4-issue miniseries. It was actually a Kickstarter I did years ago. And then Mad Cave, we did a deal with Mad Cave and they put all new covers on it and they released it to a mass audience. I think when I did the Kickstarter, the audience was like 1,500 people.
Mhm.
And Pop Kill 1 did around 55,000
Oh, wow.
sales. So, the goal at the end of the day, no matter what I do, is to get it out to the most people I can.
Sure.
So they did a great job promoting it. Those are the two main things I have out. I'm working currently on number 3 of Harley Quinn meets Elvira,
Oh, cool.
which
Really?
it's progressing slowly because it has to be okayed by DC, has to be okayed by Dynamite,
Yep.
and it has to be okayed by Elvira. So she,
Really?
yeah, so she reads it and she tells us, hey, make it a little raunchier and do this and do that. So I'm not used to that with a book, so it's taking a little longer than usual. But at the end of the day, the book you see is everybody's happy with it. So
Sure.
that's part of my job too, making everybody happy. It's exhausting, as you guys know.
When does issue 1 hit for that?
I think it's July.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
I think you'll see it solicited in the next week or two.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure it's either a June or July book. I'm hoping it's July because we got to give the artist time on it. But it is a strange, funny book. I mean, it's easy to write Harley. Obviously, written Harley a billion times.
Yeah.
Writing Elvira, I will compare it to the language that you guys will understand. Writing Harley is like writing Bugs Bunny in a way.
Yeah.
And writing Elvira is like writing a dirty Groucho Marx.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So if you keep that in mind, you can keep the tone of the book, right on. I mean, because even when we did Harley years ago, Amanda and I did it, we always looked at like the idea that Bugs Bunny always like walks into a situation, causes trouble,
Mhm.
and then makes a step to the left and lets everything go insane.
Right.
Sure.
And that's always been like the Harley thing for us. So we just had to find the voice with Elvira. I mean, besides watching her and the movies and stuff, she definitely has a beat to the way she speaks.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's a little Mae West and it's a little Groucho Marx mixed in, because she has the double entendres and all that kind of stuff. She has a lot of that going on,
Yeah.
but you have to kind of have a story first in order to make all that work,
Yeah.
So it's an interesting book. So that's the main things I'm working on right now.
So are you dealing with her directly? Like are you
No idea. So she has like a rep,
right?
and I think the script goes to the rep. The rep gives it to her. She makes a note, sends it to them. Celebrities. There's always a middle person.
Sure.
Eventually, I'll meet her and we'll talk over stuff and everything. But she approved the outline, and now we're going by the page by page the script. So her hands are all over it. I mean, there is stuff in the first 2 issues. I was laughing out loud. She said, "Hey, why don't you push that a little harder?" And
Mhm.
Okay.
and then DC has their notes. DC's like, "You can't do that," or "This is too crazy," which is our job. Amanda and I, when we've done over 120 Harley issues.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's always about pushing it further than they want. The trick for us has always been in each comic we have like 4 or 5 things that they say you can't do that, but the reality is we have like 8 things they should catch, but they hyper focus on some
Sure.
And we've learned how to like kind of go around them and make them look over there while we do this. Our current president does that pretty well. Look over here. Well, I'm going to pull this off. So we do that with the we do that with the book, and so we can at least get it to a point where we're pretty happy with it as well.
Now, the reason we opened up with what you're working on currently is that you've been working in comics since 1991.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'd done stuff before that, but nothing really worth mentioning. I did little things here and there, but I didn't start doing it for a living till like 91. Yeah.
And what was your first book again? You started as an inker.
Yeah, I started as an inker. So I did like some little independent comics, but I'll say my first Marvel or DC book, I think for Marvel was probably The Punisher, like Punisher 48 or something like that. And then I did a whole bunch of Punisher after that. And part of why I got so much work, I used to go up to Marvel. When I lived in Brooklyn, I used to go up there and meet Mark Texeira after hours, and we'd work on Ghost Rider and Punisher together. And eventually, because I was up there all the time, I would get work. People would just say, "Hey, I got a book that's late. Can you do it?"
Right.
I originally went out for penciler, but the commentary I got back, and I penciled a couple of things from Marvel, Namor, a couple of Ghost Rider stories. But they always said it looked too photorealistic, and they were not the style they were looking for. They were looking for like a Jim Lee type of thing all the time.
Sure. Yeah,
and that's not me. We already have a Jim Lee. I'm okay with filling those shoes. But I started getting a ton of inking work, and then what happened was because I was doing a decent job, I had artists asking for me.
Right.
And once you're in a place where they ask for you, then that means you constantly have work, and that's how it went after that for years. Yeah.
And then when did you transition to writing?
So we watched the Image guys when they launched all their books do it, and Joe Quesada and I were working on a bunch of comics, and we said, well, we could do that, and we put 60 grand together, and we published a comic called Ash, and then we published another book called Painkiller Jane with our company Event Comics. And that was our first writing gigs, writing for ourselves.
Yeah.
Looking back, they're horrible in their own wonderful way. They have energy, but they're not great. But I think, doing that, and then my next writing gigs I got after that were for Marvel. I wrote a year's worth of Deadpool. I did for Deadpool 47 to 55. I did the first Punisher ones, and Punisher 50. I did Deadpool 50, which was the introduced that kid Deadpool, and I did a whole bunch of issues. And then after that, I started getting regular writing work. The inking, I've always done. I've always done it. I used to do it while I was writing, but eventually I kind of pushed the inking back a little bit because I became known as the guy that was going to fix the bad pencils.
Oh, okay.
And what happened was that where I used to ink a page in 2 pages a day, all of a sudden I'm redrawing arms and hands and legs and the notes on it, fix this guy's leg, or this guy shouldn't be in a barn, it should be a building. And all of a sudden I'm redrawing, and I was just like, they don't really give you a dime more to do that.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to stop inking for a while and try to take the writing seriously. And while I was doing that, I was also, I was working Marvel Nights. I also had, I had Event Comics, and we had Black Bull. I did for Wizard Magazine. I did all the Black Bull titles for them. So I've always had my hands in like a lot of different things. I felt like if I was going to be successful in this career, I can't just stay on one thing.
Right.
And there are guys that they're known for one thing, right? They're known for the thing they do.
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that, but I felt like if I didn't create that one thing, I don't want to be the guy known for it. And, so I've always jumped around a lot with my work.
You've worked with a lot of sort of legendary figures in the 21st century comics. I mean, Joe Quesada, you already mentioned, your wife, Amanda Connor, Garth Ennis.
Always marry the penciler. That's what I say. You'll have work forever.
Yeah.
And Garth, so a lot of those guys were friends, right? Like Joe, obviously I saw Joe last week at the Thunderbolts thing, and Garth is a good buddy of mine, but Garth, I kind of worked with him before Punisher, doing some inking, and then, when we did Marvel Nights, he was like the first guy I wanted on Punisher. I was like, I need Garth Ennis on Punisher. And Steve Dillon, of course. Steve, comes
so
with the
good.
package. Yeah, the best.
I loved his work on that run of Punisher.
Yeah, welcome back, Frank. Welcome back, Frank. Is a
welcome
great
back, Frank. And because again, the Punisher is a hard character to do in any way that doesn't seem ridiculously cruel or nonsensical. And the fact that they took it over the top.
Yeah, he is.
Made it more of a parody, and it was fun.
I love the Punisher character because on one level you have to understand he's not a good guy. He's not. He's a monster,
right?
And his idea of vengeance is not. It doesn't always. There's a lot of bodies that get in between. A lot of damage that gets done.
Yeah.
I wish they kept the character at its core a little bit more because we've never had all the crap we have with the Punisher right now. I've always just seen him as this is a guy that started out as a cop, then they killed his family, and he got revenge, and then he realized with all these killings, there's no way to going back to law and order in his life.
Sure.
And he's a better tool for society to take out the bad guys the way he sees it. And then eventually, in his head, he makes it all make sense.
Yeah.
But the reality is, there's a lot of damage. There's a lot of collateral damage in his world.
Yeah.
I think if they just kept that simple, pure thing, because he doesn't have to be redeemable all the time. When Garth was writing it, it was over the top. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. But he just killed thousands of bad guys. And we watch TV now. We know things 8 episodes in.
Yeah.
You can watch a show and a guy we hate for the first 4 issues, all of a sudden we like.
Yeah.
They did it on Game of Thrones all the time.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that perspective has to be turned off a tiny bit when you do Punisher. Punisher be like, these are the bad people, and he's going to go get them. And Garth always had a really good handle on the character. I thought better than most people. I also think Chuck Dixon had a really great way of doing the Punisher, and like I said, with all the symbolism, I think Marvel reacted too much with people using the skull logo, because I always say you guys own it, so everyone else is copying it. Don't let that go. You guys own it, but we'll see. I've written a couple of Punisher books, and I love writing the character because I get it. Tom Jane's a friend of mine, so I can hear his voice when he did. Garth and I wrote the video game, the Punisher video game,
right.
Mm-hmm.
and Tom did the voice for it. So that's my Punisher voice. That Tom's low growl.
Yeah.
But yeah, I worked with a lot of guys that just super talented people. I'm always amazed when I look back at how many like any time of success anybody has, you look back and go, how the hell did I stumble into this? I know a lot of it was just hard work on my part. I just kind of kept going and kept pushing hard, and and now I benefit from it a little bit because I also, before comics, I came from an advertising background, and so I knew when I started the only way I'm going to stay in this business for a while is to make a name for myself no matter what I'm doing, to go out and shamelessly promote what I'm doing.
Sure.
Because you especially when I have my office in a comic shop, they gravitate towards names of creators. Like that's how they order things, And there's always new people, don't get me wrong, but if you did a Wizard top 10 list right now, it'd probably be a lot of the same names that it was 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I wish we could do a Wizard top 10 list right now.
Yeah, you could do it. You just call it something else.
Top 10 list.
Yeah, just call it something else.
I would love that. I love the Wizard top 10. I actually I recently got a whole bunch of back issues of Wizard. I love just flipping through them from, 10, 15 years ago. And
I personally think the magazine would work just fine.
Me too.
Right now. I think the internet has burned us out so much that reading is like such a nice thing to do, having a magazine.
Yeah.
I think the articles, we see interviews with creators, but we don't see that many. And, and then it's usually podcasts and stuff like that. But I think there's room if somebody wants to do it. God, how much could the Wizard name cost at this point?
Probably not much.
Right.
No, you could probably sell your Star Wars toys behind you and buy
probably
it.
Could. And by the way, I actually probably could do that.
Yeah,
It's funny because recently I was thinking about that, about how this has become the letter page of a comic book now, basically, because you really don't have the letter page anymore, and it's people. It's like our show that does it, because on the internet as a whole, there's so much negativity, and you say one thing wrong, and everybody jumps on.
Look, I know that.
I don't think it should be like that.
It's the internet is so everyone can have an opinion and give it to whoever they want.
You opinion with no face. That's always the problem.
I have. Walk away. You know what? So I'm on Twitter a lot, and I engage with people. Right. They don't always agree with me. They want to pick fights sometimes, and I just if they get too out of hand, I kind of like. I'm trying to turn off all my things that are making ding noises right now because I have people. Anyway,
we don't hear them, so we're not.
Okay,
we don't hear them.
Terrific. So when I'm on, I try to engage with people until they do the name calling thing. Then I block them or mute them.
That's the same with us because we get the same comments, and if someone says something out of pocket, we immediately delete the comment because we want this to be a very positive place. We don't want.
Yeah, I mean,
comic books. It should be fun.
I'm willing to have a discussion and a little bit of an argument, but I always remind people, I'm like, you don't have to get mad. Yeah. I said this is all POV stuff. I see the world differently. We can go to a museum and look at a piece of art on a wall and see two different things. Mm-hmm. That doesn't change the piece of art on the wall at all. Okay, it's just our perspective looking at it. So we don't have to agree. I said the good news is if I'm able to say something or the other person is able to say something that the other person never thought of, then there's a little bit of learning that's involved there. Like, oh my God, like I've had people point out things on paintings that, I always like, I don't like that painting. I said, yeah, but you see how he did that? And I'm like, oh, that is pretty cool. I'm like, okay, I can appreciate it. Look, when we were 14, we probably didn't love Van Gogh that much.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But we get older and we read about him or we read about his life. And then we look at the paintings again with new eyes. And all of a sudden we see all the passion and how beautiful this stuff was. And we realize, like, okay, it's just because we didn't know a lot of this stuff. But now that we know it, we can't unlearn it because now we look at it and we go, God, the pain in that guy's painting and all this kind of stuff. We see things differently. I had an argument yesterday with somebody online. It was just a basic thing. He just said, if you're in this country illegally, you should just be taken out. You're instantly a criminal. And I had to remind him, I said, that's not true. Because I said, you're talking about people that sneak in the country, but we're not talking about why they come here. And I said, sometimes it's religious persecution. Sometimes it's, whatever it was. People come with their families for a better life. They're not criminals. They're just looking for a better life. They didn't go through the process, but we respectfully are a country of due process. And we hear their case. We listen to it. And we say, okay, we understand the circumstances. And he kept arguing with me. He said, no, they should just be gone. We should just get rid of them. And I said, our ancestors kind of came into this country. Not all of them legally, trust me. A lot of them were running away from wars, whether it was World War I or World War II. Not every one of them came through Ellis Island. I don't know if they realize that.
Right.
A lot came from Canada, a lot come up from South America. But once they hear, they love the world here and they want to make a living for their life and for their kids. And I said, so we can't just automatically say everybody that's here that isn't legal is a criminal. That's not fair.
Right. Or classify them as an invading force.
Right. And I said, we have a thing called due process. That's what makes America so great, is that everyone gets to have their day in court and discuss it. And, and look, that's how we learn people's perspectives. We have empathy on what their situation is, and then we're able to process what that is and give it a fair listen to. But he kept telling me, well, that's too much of a deep dive. You're wrong. And I was like, okay, I said, we're going to agree to disagree then. I had to, but I was trying, I mentioned some stuff, about the Constitution. And I said, hey, look, maybe we can both learn a little bit about this. But sometimes people don't want to, it's a lot to ask them to take the time to think or at least see another perspective. And there's a lot of fear involved with that for some reason.
Often people don't want to learn; they want to win.
They want to fight. They just want.
Yeah, and winning is overrated, right? As kids,
oh, absolutely,
we love to win the game, but 10 minutes later we were doing something else.
Yeah,
like it really wasn't like 3 days later I wasn't going, hey, I beat you the other day. Like we never, as a kids, we didn't have that. We were just so happy to be playing.
Right.
Yeah. and somebody always wins, somebody always lost. It was always the obnoxious guy that was like going, there's always one of those. But for the most part, the winning thing is like very overrated.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I'd rather have a game playing the game. I like to be part of the game. I work in comics. I am not a top 10 guy. I've never been a top 10 guy, but I'm so happy I'm in comics, and I'm not losing sleep over that, right? Because I look around at these artists and I'm like, they're all amazing. Like I can't, how can I compete with that? But I'm happy I'm in the game,
Right.
And then, you carve out your own little corner and you hope people notice it. But it's just, like I said, it's interesting times. I don't think everything needs to be attacked, and I don't think everything needs to be about winning. And I think once we can figure out that, then all this stuff like politics and everything become easier.
Agreed.
I think there's a lot of time spent keeping us fighting each other, so we don't notice what they're doing.
That's true.
It's a definite great distraction tactic, and I don't like to fall for that. I like to think I'm a little smarter than that. But like I said, a movie comes out this week, Thunderbolts.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I had a good time watching it. I don't know if you guys saw it yet.
I didn't see it.
I'm going Friday.
Okay.
Didn't see it yet.
It's fun. It's like it's Marvel's Suicide Squad in a weird way,
Well,
right?
yeah.
A lot of fun. But there's people that spend all day. I look at their thread. All they do is put it down. Hey, you lost money, and all they do is this negative energy. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my god, like what does that get you?
Yeah.
Like,
just enjoy it.
Is it dopamine? Is it dopamine coming out through your negative stuff? I mean,
because we talk about that on the show a lot. Because obviously we're a little bit older. We're not kids watch movies. We've been through all the superhero movies, so a lot of times we talk about how we feel so glad just to be able to have all these movies.
Yes,
I sat and waited for Superman 4, and I say that a lot on the show. I waited for Superman 4, and if it was better than Superman 4. I'm good with the movie. If I walked out and said, it was good, it was better than Superman 4, I'm okay with it. So I love where we are.
But what do they want? They want no superhero movie? Because that's what you get when they keep bombing, by the way.
Sure.
When you don't support them, we get none. They're going to have to move on and complain about something else.
I get Superman 4 again is what happens. I wait 4 years and I get Superman 4 again.
That was a tough one to get through. I have to admit.
And that's honestly, that's my bar. We get 2 or 3 superhero movies a year. We should be happy. And I feel the same about Star Wars.
Yeah.
There was a time when we got no Star Wars, and now we get it regularly. Why are you upset about new Star Wars and new movies? You should never be upset about something you love.
Right. And what do I care what it made? I don't
care what it made.
My ticket was the same price as everybody else's.
Wait, you don't get a free ticket? They don't give you a free ticket?
I would like everything that's good to be successful. And I'd like everything that's not good to learn from the good.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because people do get better at what they do.
Sure.
That's the bottom line. You don't, and it doesn't end. People get older, they get better.
Well, it's like what you said about you were being a little self-derogatory about Ash and Painkiller Jane.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the sign that you could look back at your old work and think like, oh, I don't know if it was that good, and then be happy with that shows growth and evolution. And it's good when someone's given a chance to do that.
Right.
Instead of like making something and having somebody just step on it, and then they.
No, that's true, and you hope every guy or girl that brings me their portfolio and I give them notes. I'm hoping next time I see them, they listen to the notes and they get better.
Right.
I'm not hoping for them to not get better. Like, why would I want that? I want them to go after and succeed because it makes me look good, right? In the long run, But also, I get what they want. I get that hunger, And sometimes I get people that cannot draw at all, and they bring me their stuff, and I sit there and I'm like, okay, this person's already insecure, right? Mm-hmm. They're bringing it to me. They're nervous. Yeah. I can see they're nervous. Their hands are. So what do? Well, I'm gonna figure out the thing they need to work on first and walk them through it. Mm-hmm. And then lay it out and say, okay, let's do this. Now, if they start yelling at me and say, I'm good and I got a degree at this and they told me I was great, then I'm going to have a little argument with them and say, well, you're not there yet.
Yeah.
And people don't like to hear that, but I never say you're not there yet and end it there. I always say you're not there yet, but if you work on your hands and you work on your shading a little bit, if you look at this guy's art, or if you give me your email, I'll send you a script or whatever. There's a way to do it, and there's a way to be a good person. And then there's a way to be just feeding your own ego. And we do run into those people a lot. They want a pat on the back for everything. But I don't have that many pats on me, I have like a 6-shooter. I can do it for a little bit. After that, I'm shooting blanks,
My eldest kid is in art school, and whenever we talk about something that's difficult to do, the first thing that comes up is hands. It's funny you mentioned hands and horses.
Horses are tough, right?
Horses are so hard.
Because kids, when they first draw horses, they look like giant dogs,
right?
But hands, I always say hands a circle with 5 sticks,
right? Yeah.
So, but when somebody tells you that, when your son says that, right? Like, I have trouble drawing hands. It literally must become hand drawing month,
right?
Where every day you're drawing hands. So it's not something, because what happens with artists and what happens with people is they keep telling themselves they can't do something, and then it becomes this crutch, and then they believe it.
Yeah.
And they can't do it. Yeah. Right? We all have that. We say it in our life, say, oh, I'm terrible at this. Because one time you did it 8 years ago and it was terrible. You taught yourself that I am now terrible at this. Yeah. But that's not true, right? It just means the time you did it, you didn't know what you were doing, or it wasn't great. And that's one of the things I have to beat into people all the time. People have to be careful what they tell themselves, because they really start to believe it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. People say, I can't do this and I can't do that. I always say, all right, you couldn't do it that time you tried it. Let's try it again today. Let's see where you go. Let's see where you land with it. But our brains are very funny that way. We train them. Our insecurities do take up a lot of space that they shouldn't, And I will say the best example I can give of this is when you guys were kids, you drew all the time, right? When you were
all the time,
all the time. Somewhere in your childhood, a comment was made, or you saw somebody better than you, or something, and you stopped.
Yep.
Okay. The good news is, when you're 70 something, you're not going to give a shit anymore.
Right.
And then you're going to pick up that pen and that brush and do it again.
Sure.
And that's why art classes for older people do so well. They don't care anymore what other people think. Now, it's unfortunate that everybody got to that spot where they stopped, but we all hit that at some level, right?
We did.
And, so it's an interesting thing to look at, because honestly, sure, as an adult, nobody's going to put your art on their refrigerator like they used to.
I have my own fridge. I can do
right. You got your own refrigerator now. You can put all the art up you want.
Anything you want.
and if people say that sucks, and you go, well, sorry, you don't like it. I do sketches all the time for free at the con. People bring me like the trade books, and I'll always do a sketch in it. Right. And I very rarely have I ever heard somebody say, "Oh, I don't like that. Why'd you do that?" They're always like, "Thank you," whether they like it or not. They always thank you.
Sure.
And I'm like, some of them look good, some of them don't, but to them, they're just happy to get it. I mean, so you gotta train yourself to be in that blissful space, so you don't have that wall that you come up against. But we all have it. We all have something that we feel we're not good at. But if we dissect it, it's definitely just because the 1 or 2 times we did it. There's one thing, when you do grouting, you do grouting with the window. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm terrible at it.
Everyone is. No one's good at grouting.
No, my wife is great at it, right? Amanda's great at it. And when I do it, she always comments, "That's terrible." And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. Right? I mean, it's good with dishes, right? Because if you wash the dishes terribly, your wife will say, "Don't touch the dishes, I'll do them." Okay.
I have done that too.
That works. But
I didn't learn that lesson.
I learned that lesson early on.
I still do dishes every night.
I never do dishes because I'm terrible at dishes. Why would I do dishes?
I didn't learn that lesson.
I learned it. But let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Were you a comic book fan when you were a kid too? You grew up in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, I was definitely. I had 2 older brothers, and my brother Vic had Playboys.
Okay.
So I definitely was a big fan of Little Annie Fanny in the back.
I remember little Annie Fanny.
Yeah, man. But my uncle had a barbershop on Flatbush and Avenue N, and he had comic books in it. So whenever I go to the barbershop, he would let me take a couple of comics home, that he had stacks of them. And so I started reading at an early age. Again, I grew up without cable, without computers, without all that stuff, right? So reading, when you have 4 boys in a small house in Brooklyn, you kind of find your own place and do your own thing.
Yeah.
So I used to go and sit on my stoop and read comics, and then my friends would come over from the neighborhood and they would go through my pile and see if there was something good they liked. I had a buddy who loved Hulk. I liked Superman, So we always had like a couple of different, and we'd swipe comics. We just like borrow each other's comics and read them. It was not a collecting thing when I was a kid. It was more like here's my bunch of comics I have. Did you guys want to read any of them? And we'd sit on the stoop. So it was like my own world I can get into, and I really enjoyed them. I still reminisce about some of the first stuff I've read, but it was something I always liked. And then I started drawing, copying them. And I noticed that my friends would sit like in my basement and I would draw, and they'd ask me draw that panel and do that. So the opposite happened to me. Instead of people telling me I suck, my friends were like, oh, do this one for me. And I would draw them. So I felt like, oh, look, I do something, I could do something pretty good. And this is like, I'm 10 or 11 at this point. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually decent at something. And then I remember I went to Catholic school, and then one year I went to Midwood, which is in Brooklyn. And then I went to the High School of Art and Design. But when I was in grammar school, every time I did a book report, I would draw the cover of the book report. And my teachers would give me whatever the grade was, they'd add a plus. So it's a B plus, and they'd always say the plus is for the cover. Nice. Because I liked that I drew the cover. Yeah. So when you're younger and you can do something, you pick up a baseball bat and you're really good at that. And, you feel empowered. And I felt like reading the comics, and I felt like I started writing my own comics and doing that. And it wasn't until I went to High School of Art and Design in New York, and I took comic art and illustration, and then I had a weird epiphany around 11th to 12th grade. I was ghosting for some artists, that actual comic artists. I was doing I was inking stories in a book called Time Warp, which was a DC.
Yeah, I know it.
They're like $1 for like 800 pages, right? Yeah.
I have some.
And I was doing stuff I was inking stuff for some war comics, and I was inking some Howard the Duck magazine over Gene Colan, and went for a bunch of different artists. And I had the epiphany one day. I went home with my dad, and he saw me working on this stuff, and he's like, do you get paid very well? And I'm like, no, they told me like $5 a page. And he's like, how long does it take you? And I said, like all day, Yeah. And he's like, let me ask you something. They're considered successful artists? I'm like, yeah, they do really well. They got all these books they do. And he goes, how do they live? And I'm like, oh, well, they're on in Manhattan. They're off 2nd Avenue and 21st Street. And I said, and it's 3 grown men, and they share a studio apartment. They have their mattresses standing up. Yeah. And I said, and when they go to sleep, they pull the mattresses down. So it's like, and my dad says, and they're successful? And I'm like, yeah, kind of, yeah. Like, they constantly have work. He goes, maybe it's not the greatest job. Like, maybe it doesn't pay well. And he didn't want me to stop drawing. He just wanted me to think about, like, what are you going to make a living on this? Yeah. And he was 100% right. And I went into advertising after that, and I did very well. Up until around 1990. I owned part of an ad agency, and I was doing very well, but I wanted to do comics again, but I figured out how I was going to do it. I figured out how I'm going to make money. I'm not going to do what those guys did, but I needed those 10 years outside of comics to really grasp, how do you make a living on this? How do you put your name out there with the work? Because the companies don't want to promote us. Let's be honest. Right. They don't, because if they promote us, that means we can ask for more money, and they don't like that. Yes. Right. That's why when you think about Walt Disney, there's only one name attached to all those cartoons. It's Walt Disney, So with my advertising, I learned how to not only do that kind of stuff, but I also learned about deadlines, and I learned about how to work a client, which was all my editors were my clients. So how I would take them to dinner, we would go out, we'd become friends. All of a sudden I was getting better work. So it was a whole bunch of things I learned before I got into Comic Aid. And I also knew the only way I'm going to last is if I make a name for myself.
Yeah.
And I pick and choose what I want to do and stuff like that. So I needed that background to do it. But back to your question, comics have always been in my life. I've always had comics around the house. I've always read them. Oh my God. I mean, there was only a time, I think from like 82 to like 88, I took a break from them because girls. Right?
We all had that story.
And I managed to pick up a book here and there, but the girls definitely prioritize. I mean, I sold my FF #1 to buy a car back in 79. I bought a used car, but that car was like a hotel on wheels for years, you know, and that was worth every dime, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I bought a new FF #1, but it's not in great shape. But who cares? You know?
That's my number one on my list.
He's gonna sell his car to get an FF.
That's probably at some point.
It's been
on the list for a while.
Right at the beginning of COVID, the comic store that I have my office in is called Emerald City Comics in Clearwater, Florida.
Okay.
And he had a FF #1 4.0.
Right.
A CG seed, right? He had a Spider-Man #1, so 2.0. It's not in great shape. And he goes, I'll give you both for, I think it was 16.5 grand. I give you both.
Right.
Give me a deal. And I was like, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
I told the man, I said, you know what? I'm going to take it out of my savings because I think these will be worth more money. They're never going to be worthless.
Never.
But I think they might pick up in the next couple of years. And it turned out to be a pretty good investment because they both went up a little bit. Plus, when I went to CGC, I had them re-CGC'd. So they put from the collection of Jimmy Palmiotti on it.
Oh.
So I had them do that for me, which was very nice of them. I do a lot of signings for them. But they're beautiful, and I look at them all the time, and I'm always like, okay, I'd love to have a mint one. I love to have, but it's not realistic, right?
Definitely not.
That's for other people. But I'm happy I got it back again. Like I feel like I got my copy back again. And the Spider-Man's so beaten up, but it's lovely to look at.
It's
nice
to have an amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, my big thing I collect is artwork. So comic art is like probably like with your toys behind you.
Yeah,
I have art like that. Like that's how my art collection is. You know, except not as neat as that.
I try.
Yeah, man.
You're seeing the neat side. If we turned the camera and showed you the other side, where the comic books are, the comic books are a mess. Like I can't get my comic books organized right now.
No, I can't either. I have them in stacks and piles. No. I bring them to the store. Like I trade them in. I'm like, I don't need these. I've read all these. But so we have a disease, the three of us.
100%.
Okay.
I agree.
That it's hard to just take this thing and throw it in a recyclable.
Could never do it. I'll give it away first. I'll give it to someone who I know will read it.
Yes.
I will never throw a comic book away.
My younger brother Pete, I fill a box up and I ship it to him, and he's like, "What's this?" And I said, "Do whatever you want with it. Read them." Give them to friends. I don't care. It's just I'm done with them.
Yeah, I would never throw one away. I'll give them away, and we do. We give away a lot of comic books.
We do.
That's good.
Throughout for people that maybe stuff you didn't know was out there, but
yeah.
And again, if we're going to give them away, we want to give them to people who are
going to appreciate them.
Yeah, right. Like them as much as we did.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. Yeah,
but they do take up a lot of space. And are you guys in your basement?
My basement, yes. And on the other side of us, there are 9 file cabinets filled with comic books.
Like those old metal cabinets?
The best way.
I think the best way to store comic books is in the file cabinets. Easy access, and then now they're overflowing into boxes, and more boxes just stacking up in every corner. And
mine. I'm terrible because mine are in cardboard long boxes in a storage room that's an offshoot of my basement.
Okay.
That is not climate controlled or temperature controlled.
Mine is. You got to watch that mold.
Yeah, they're probably doing great.
Just take a dehumidifier down there and let it run for a day or two.
I have 3 down here right now. I keep 3 dehumidifiers running.
So I'm in Florida, no basements. Like the Alamo, there's no basement. So everything has to be above ground. But I do have the comics packed in like the driest area there is. But I have to I have the hurricane issue, right? A couple of times a year. Sure. So I have to boogie out of here. So I have these big waterproof suitcases that I throw everything in.
Really?
Oh.
Some of the stuff I leave. Some of the stuff I leave because it's just too much stuff, you know. But I take the valuable stuff. I have like these. Let me see if I have one around here. Here's one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
These.
Oh,
we've seen
yeah,
those.
we've seen those at a lot of card conventions. We see them at card conventions.
So
actually, I saw a few of those at the last convention we were at. Yeah,
these are completely waterproof.
Mm.
So I can take a Batman #2.
Oh,
yeah.
Right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I have like cool stuff in here. But it's funny because I'm like, if this thing goes away, I'm doomed. Like I'm just like, I'll show you my FF and Spider-Man since we talked about it.
He's rubbing it in.
Let's see. What's that?
I said you're rubbing it in.
I'm not rubbing it. It's called inspiration.
That's
there we go.
Yeah, my problem is I don't ever think I'll be able to get a graded one. I'm gonna have to try to find an ungraded one, and it's so hard to find.
Going to be
ungraded.
Impossible.
So you don't like the grade? Well,
I don't. I like to read.
No. I get it, but you've never read that comic before.
I have, of course. I have reprints.
Do you have a facsimile?
I have every facsimile I've done in the last 15 years, but I want to hold that #1. And it's funny. I did recently. We were at a convention recently, and we overheard an older couple was selling a stack of comic books to one of the dealers, and he had an FF1. It was in good condition.
Sure.
And I'm like, can I just hold it? I was like, can I just hold it in my hand, please? And I held it, and he. Luckily, the dealer was being very nice and wasn't buying from him. He was being very like, you really need to grade this and get it sold. Just don't sell it to me right now because you're losing thousands of dollars.
I get people not liking the grading, but if you're buying comics, it's really helpful.
Well, if you're buying something that's as valuable as FF #1,
I bought a copy of Batman 5, and the guy told me it was a complete book. I flipped through it; it looked fine.
Right.
It was missing the middle spread.
Oh.
And to his credit, he acknowledged that, okay, let me give you something else, or let me give you your money back. But he acknowledged, I said, I don't want money back, but it's not worth the same. I said, it's worth $900 without the middle page.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's like, what if I could find a middle page? And I said, well, I've looked, and the middle page for that is like $3,000. Like people break up their comics and
Just
sell pages.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, really?
I did not know that.
I had no idea that was.
I had no idea.
There's this like underground market of people that have like pieces.
They're just selling
certain books, and they're expensive.
Really?
Because you got to think the middle page is always going to be the one that's going to come out.
Right. The first one that comes out.
Right, because that's where the staple is. Yeah.
And then you see. Have you ever seen the CG books where it's just a cover?
Yeah.
There's a guy I know that had a page from Detective 27.
Yeah, they did a big sale on those recently.
One page.
Yeah. They sold like 12 pages as individual pages, and they went for like $5,000-6,000.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah, I feel like that's, I don't know.
You just want to say you own a pice of Detective.
There's a saying that I love. It's called "There's an ass for every seat."
Yeah.
I don't have to understand it, but I'm happy they're happy.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't.
But I don't. Something feels just wrong about it. I don't know. Just like, I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, it's why I collect art, because while it's nice to have an FF #1, there's a lot of them.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And when you talk about comic book art, there's only one.
Right.
And for me, that's like the ultimate collectible is to find a page I love that's for sale.
So
and
what's your best art piece? What's your number one art piece?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I have artists that I like, and then I have ones that are gifts.
Right.
I have a bunch here.
I think the right answer was an Amanda Connor one. That's
I have a lot of them.
I was just saying.
I have a lot of Amanda work. I have a really nice Bill Sienkiewicz piece. That's
that's really nice.
Electra.
I love his.
I love Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, Bill. Amanda used to be Bill's assistant.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, if you look at the last 20 pages of Electra Assassin, it's Amanda.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's. I mean, so much so when you look at it, you're going to start laughing out loud because you
really
your brain's going to go, "Oh my God, that's her." Yeah,
that's so funny.
Art wise, I have things like I have like stuff that like is means a lot to me. Like when Darwin Cook passed away, he left me a cover for his collection, his DC collection, and it said Jimmy's Bar on it. You know,
yeah.
And he left me that. You know, that was after he passed away. So of course that's sentimental, right?
Sure.
But I have one piece of artwork by Mobius, and I have an Adam Hughes piece that I love, and I have like these like one page probably from everybody. I have a beautiful FF Kirby page from like issue 102 or something, and I don't need a lot of them. I just want one of each.
You want a Kirby?
But I also bought them when art was kind of reasonable.
Oh, it's out of control now.
Oh, it's very expensive now. Yeah.
Oh, dude. I'm like, it's just insane right now.
Oh,
I get it, and I think what happened is the market went global.
yeah.
It used to be, you go to a con, the guy would have all his pages there, and you flip through, and he'd be like, yeah, that's 20, that's 30, that's 50, that's a cover, that's 200. Yeah, I don't see those days anymore.
Oh no, the prices are.
Well, also the new guys all do stuff digitally, so there's no original art.
Right. Yeah. There's no paper.
So that's the other thing. Yeah.
We were at New York Comic Con
2 years ago.
2 years ago, and someone had a bunch of Kirby stuff up, and it was stuff that looked like he had painted himself. Like
They were painted. They were like character shots.
yeah, but they were painted in like colors that you wouldn't expect the characters to be in.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Barda from
right.
the way she looked in Forever People or whatever. It was his like sort of imagining of her. You know what I mean? And those are so expensive, and I can't imagine where they must have gotten them.
I mean, so Jack used to draw all the time, right? So a lot of those color pieces that I seen, he did like shows and animation things and stuff like that. He did a lot of other work. He was never fully appreciated, when he was alive. But he was always busy. He was a man that worked like every day, right?
Yeah.
I think at one point at Marvel, he was doing 3 books a month, which just seems insane.
Right.
But yeah, you see that stuff, and look, everybody wants a prime Kirby. I would like the cover of FF48. That would be a great one. But then you see it sell for $600,000, and you're like, what the what?
But who's buying that? Who's buying that?
So there are these people out there. We all know them because they own the houses around us that are very big. Right. That they have this income. I don't know where they make that money. They obviously do anything but this.
Yeah.
And they have money, this disposable income, man. They buy stuff. I mean, you think about it. If you're a multimillionaire, to buy something for $200,000 is not going to kill you.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're going to get stuck with it, right? Because comic art is different than fine art. Fine art, it's a weird edge, right? If you have a Norman Rockwell, that'll always be worth money. Right. But if you buy modern art, it isn't always worth money. And comic art will always have an audience. Somebody will always want to buy it. Yeah. And I think I think as the years go by, and I'm talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're going to see that market be even bigger.
I agree.
Oh, and especially you have investment firms buying original comic art.
They do, and they go to Heritage and they bid on stuff like crazy.
Right? Yeah. It's not people getting it; it's companies. And
sometimes I see pieces. And then I'm like, I see it in somebody's house. I'm like, you're the crazy man that bought that, I'm like, what the hell?
That was you.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that is a collectible. It's always going to stay, especially if you guys haven't gone to OAX yet. OAX is a convention. It's coming up this February. This will be the 3rd one they do in Orlando.
Okay.
It is the original Comic Art Expo.
Yeah.
Really?
It's probably the most fun convention for me because all it is like 60 comic artists, maybe 30 or 40 comic art dealers, and then some illustration things. And it's a 2-day show in a hotel where you literally get the room above the con. So you can come down the elevator and you can hang out. It's a Saturday and Sunday, but on Friday night, they have a mixer. So an open bar and everybody hangs out. That they talk about comics. It is the most comic art love fest I've ever been to. This is the 3rd one coming in February.
And this is open to the public?
Yeah, it's open to the public. Yeah.
Okay.
If you guys want to go, we can talk offline and I can help you guys out with that. Because I'm on the board of directors for the con. But Amanda and I do, like last year was me and Amanda, Adam Kubert, and we had Adam Hughes next to me. Mike Allred was there and stuff like that. And so we go there and just draw and do commissions. But there are so many dealers selling stuff, and it's a great place to buy because everybody's competing. You know, they're trying to get you business. It's sort of like there was a thing in Manhattan. Remember, I don't know if you guys remember on 8th Street was like 800 shoe stores.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
The way,
And when you shop there, it was just smart because everybody competed with each other, so the prices were great.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. Like instead of going to a con where there's 4 art dealers, this is like it's got 40 of them.
And so your prices are the best you're probably going to see.
Yeah. Well, plus you can go. The artists bring their art too, so you can buy it straight from the artist, which is a lot cheaper. Adam Hughes has a portfolio. You can literally pull a piece out and go, "I want that," you know. But OAX is one of my favorite shows because it's just I've never seen so many people happy to be there. Plus, it's February in Orlando.
Right. Yeah.
So people fly down to Orlando, and it's right across from Universal. So you literally can go to the con, and then across the street is Universal if you want to go to Universal. But it's the nice weather.
I will be in Orlando in February at some point this year.
Well, you just email me, and I'll make some things happen for you.
My youngest child is going to be starting to work at Disney in August, so she'll be there.
Is she cook or a chef?
No, it's the college program, so she's going as an intern, but she's probably going to do it for a year. So we're going to try to visit her as much as we can when she's.
We have a friend's kid is in there with the cooking
right
now, and she loves it. So you know that your kid, they'll love it. I mean,
I'm hoping she doesn't love it that much and stay down there. So hoping she could.
No, it's not that she's going to love where she is. She's going to love the work.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
And knowing my kid, she's gonna love the work, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, if she stays down there, then you have to go visit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the work. Not like she moved to France. That's a little bit of
right.
Yeah,
that is. So, what do you have? You mentioned it. What do you have yourself coming up, comic book convention wise?
So the next one I have one this weekend, a couple of days in Sarasota. That's a 1-day show, and then I have. Let me get it in front of me. We have. Heroes Con.
Oh, okay. That's North Carolina. Right?
Have you ever been?
North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been to Heroes?
Heard nothing but good things about it. We have friends that have gone down there. I've heard it's one of the better conventions on the East Coast.
If you're a comic book fan,
we are.
It is one of the few cons that almost every booth sells comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great shopping con.
Mm-hmm.
That's me. That's what I go and I.
So you know how you go to most of the cons now, and it's like a sword guy and a T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. The Funko Pop guy and a Funko Pop guy and a Funko Pop guy.
This is comic guys. Mm-hmm. We're talking the kind of things where the guys put 40 boxes and say the books are $1. You know, like a lot of that stuff goes on there, because what I do is I go in and sometimes because I don't have a lot of books for the booth. You know, so I'll go to the dollar guys and find like 30 Harleys and I'll buy them for my table. So Heroes Con is a comic book con. It's a great show. Mm-hmm. And then I have one in that's June 21st and 22nd.
Okay.
That is, I'm telling you, that's a great show. That's soon. That's not too far.
That's soon. A little more than a month away.
Yeah. And then I have one in Jacksonville, Florida. That's easy. I have San Diego Comic-Con, which I'm there for the whole show. Mm-hmm. And then I have another con in August. They haven't announced me yet, so I can't say anything. Okay. And there's another con in September. I can't say anything. Until they announce me, I'm not allowed to say I'm going to.
He does a lot of con. Him and his wife are at a lot of conventions.
We do like around 6 a year.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot, but we do around 6.
Are you doing New York this year?
No. No New York, no fan expos, no. We skip years like with New York, so we don't do it every year.
Right.
It is exhausting.
Oh, we know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's. I love the show. I love New Yorkers, obviously, but man, is that an exhausting show?
It really is.
More exhausting than San Diego. You know.
Really?
Why so? Why do you?
Because I don't set up in San Diego. I go as a guest.
Okay.
So we literally hang out in a hotel bar and the pool until we have to go in the building and do a signing.
Yeah.
With New York, you have to sit at that booth the whole weekend, and they want you to be there all weekend. It's 4 days, and it's all day long. And you know how it is. That part of Manhattan, you get out and you're exhausted.
Oh yeah.
You just want to eat, and then everything's packed, and everybody's everywhere, and you know.
Yeah, and you're
out of the building. It's like Mission Impossible.
Yeah, you're all the way on the west side, and you got to try to make your way somehow inward
Yeah, I mean Chelsea's at least built up a little bit more. I was the idiot that would grab a hot dog on a corner because I'd be like, I'm exhausted, I just want to crash. But unfortunately, having that many friends around there, they were like, "Oh, meet us here tonight, or we're going to this Irish bar tonight." And then
That's what we always do. I always end up at an Irish bar after New Year's.
it's 4 a.m, and I'm like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have done this. I have to wake up. I have to be at the booth at 10 tomorrow." But I do love the New York Con. I mean, so people.
I go every year with my two daughters. We've gone since they were little.
Do you get a hotel room?
No, we're so close, so it's a ferry. Now they have the fast ferry that literally drops us off behind the Javits.
Oh, the ferry, the ferry across. That's great.
Yeah, it drops you off right behind the Javits Center, we did that with.
How old are your kids?
My kids are 25 and 23 now.
Oh, okay. You're older than you look.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Or I had them young. One of two things. I did. I'm older than I look. I did not have them young. But my oldest is getting married. Is actually moving bought a house. She's moving away next weekend, and the little one is going to Florida to work.
Where's the house? Is it near you?
The house is in Jersey. No one can afford in New York anymore.
Why would you?
The prices are on Staten Island. The prices are ridiculous. Right?
Look. I lived in Brooklyn my whole life.
No.
Brooklyn's not cheap anymore.
Oh no, it is not.
Brooklyn was impossible.
That was the place you went because you had no money.
And right. And now no.
Mm-hmm.
And Staten Island's become the same way. And
I blame white people, but that's a whole nother story.
The prices are out of control in New York.
I don't know how these kids are even getting bought. I mean, I look at what they make for a living, and I'm just like, how can you afford anything? Like,
I don't know. I don't know how they do it.
They live. I'm telling you, the new thing is like live off the parents.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Unfortunately,
okay with it.
Well, again, like there was a time where you could just go to New York, get an apartment with any old job, and do what you're going to do. Right.
Right.
Yeah. I looked at a co-op. I remember, and this was 1981, but I looked at a 2-bedroom co-op in Manhattan. And it was $58,000.
Oh my God!
It was on 22nd Street and Second.
Yeah, but what's it worth now?
$2 million,
probably 1.6 or something.
Yeah.
But back then, I'm like, oh, that's approachable. My payment would be about $600 a month. With the mortgage and then the maintenance. But like now, the kids go out, they have to get like 3 of them in one apartment.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to buy houses. How this generation is going to afford to buy houses.
I think we'll watch the economy go sideways, and
it's going to happen.
What happens? Hopefully they figure things out.
I hope so.
I don't know.
I don't have faith in the government. I'm not a person that thinks they're going to solve anything.
We're both teachers in real life, so we.
I'm sorry.
We deal with a lot. We know a lot of.
Yeah, my next door neighbors are both teachers. They're both high school teachers.
Yeah.
And I get the stories, boy. I get the story. I mean, I just think I always say if we went to war, and they started recruiting the 16 to 18-year-olds to fight overseas, we're all in trouble.
Oh, a lot of trouble.
Because they're just going to run away and hide.
Oh my God! No, they won't run around. They'll be like this.
Well, hopefully the weapons will be like that. But
that's exactly what they'll be.
I'm basing it on a couple of kids I know. They're so sweet. Yeah, I just don't picture them having a gun in their hand. But I'm sure that's every generation. Nobody wants their kids going to war.
No.
My dad did it. He said, "I did it for you guys, or you don't have to."
Right.
I'm like, "Dad, don't work like that." But okay.
If only. If only. Like, wait, did your dad serve? Okay, forget it. Go home.
No, you don't have that. I wish.
It doesn't work like that.
So usually the way we end the show is I come up with like 3 or 4 random questions, just
awesome,
quick answers that delve into your comic book mind.
Okay.
And the first one is always the same. If you could work with anyone, any artist, living or deceased, who would you most want to work with?
2 of them come to mind right ahead. Frank Frazetta.
Okay.
Because I met Frank many times, and I would love to do something. He was just fun to hang out with. And then probably want to do one more book with Darwin Cook. We talked about doing an epic type story, and unfortunately he passed away. And I would have loved to get a chance to do that, but that's an easy one for me.
Yeah.
Great answer too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you had any character you could work on that you've never worked on before, who would you want to work on?
That's got to be hard because you've worked on so many.
You've worked on a lot of characters.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who I haven't worked on. You know what? I've never written Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I have Fantastic Four number 1 to 200. I have the whole set.
oh.
Right?
So we're putting that out into the world now. That
Yeah, so they won't hire me to do FF. But I think I would like the challenge of doing it. But I probably would not. They probably wouldn't love what I wrote because I would be writing it like a 1960s them as the family kind of terrorizing each other all the time. I'm not so sure.
That looks like what the movie.
that looks like with the movie.
Well, the movie, I think the movie looks fun. I think,
Yeah, me too.
people like picking on the surfer, and I'm like, I don't care.
I don't care. She's a great actress. I really.
Oh my God, she's terrific. So I'm like, yeah, who cares? Probably FF first came to mind. I've written every other character I've ever. I did pitch up at DC. I did pitch a Dirty Harry series.
Really?
Yeah, to do like a retro 70s comic with Dirty Harry.
But Harry Callahan, though.
Yeah, Harry Callahan.
Wow. Nice.
They didn't go for it, but I would have.
That's a shame.
I would have loved to write that because I loved how much of an a-hole he was, a wonderful fellow in those movies. I pitched that at one point, and I pitched the Legion of Superheroes with me and Amanda doing it, and they didn't go for that either because we wanted to do a 1-year book where they gather the superheroes, the Legion of Superheroes, so we get to know each one, and then we wanted to launch a number 1 that was the actual book with all of them together.
Right? Yeah.
They didn't go for it.
They don't use them nearly enough.
No, they don't.
No, every once in a while they'll give whoever's hot up there another shot at it. I think Bendis did the last one. And they kind of retrofit them a little bit, but I just think they're great characters because with film you could do anything now.
Right.
The idea that you could I just like the ridiculousness of the characters. They were ridiculous and it was fun. But so there's a lot of answers to that one. I'm sorry I gave you like 5 different things.
That's how these questions. You worked on a team that I'm really a fan of, and I don't think they do enough of them. You worked on Freedom Fighters.
Yeah, Uncle Sam.
I love the Freedom Fighters.
Nearly enough of them.
They, why we got those books. You're gonna love this. Why they gave Justin and I those books is because the copyrights and trademarks were running out. So they had to put books out with the title, and we managed to make them fun and crazy. We even did they even had us do separate titles for each character. We did the Human Bomb one with Jerry Ordway, and we did Phantom Lady, but they never promoted the books. Like they just put them out, and DC knew they were never going to sell, so they didn't put any push on them. I had one circumstance on the book that regret was I worked with an editor that I'm not going to name her, but we had Uncle Sam die, and then we had his soul come up in a black soldier. And he was going to be the new Uncle Sam. And the editor told me that Dan DiDio said there's no way we can do the black Uncle Sam. Right? And then I'm like, oh, that's really a shame because what a great opportunity,
Sure.
And then 2 years later, I'm talking to Dan DiDio, and I'm like, yeah, I hated that you killed that thing. He goes, oh, that's a great idea. You should have done it. And I'm like, no. The editor told me that you said no. He goes, that editor never came to me and asked me.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So obviously it was the editors didn't want it. And so we didn't do it because I had this great story about a vet, a Vietnam vet. That Uncle Sam's soul is looking for the next inspiration.
Sure.
And he comes into this vet that's been discarded.
Yeah.
Like the society's just dismissed him. He's a mess and everything. I just had this great story. I thought because the spirit of Uncle Sam should be, anyway, never happened.
But when is that up again? So when do they have to put another comic book out? Because
I started probably 15, 20 years. I may not be alive for when that copyright comes up. But when you do see random weird comics, it's usually because the trademark's running out.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
That often happens. Like you'll see a press come out for no reason.
It does. You'll sit there and you go, why is Metamorpho a comic right now?
And he's out right now. Why is Metamorpho out right now as his own comic? It's weird.
Sometimes that happens.
Okay.
I'm waiting for Jonah Hex to have that problem. They go, all right, we need a new Jonah Hex.
Well, you wrote that for a while, right? You wrote Jonah Hex.
I did. I wrote 70 issues in a row, and then we did All-Star Western was another 39-ish, 36 or 39 issues. Yeah, it was a long time. It was like at least 5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
I wrote that for 5 years, and Man and I did Harley for like 5 years. Because Harley is 3 omnibuses. We've done, I don't know, 100 and something issues of that book.
Well, you're the one that made her what she is today. I think without the two of you, she's not as popular as she is.
We definitely were the inspiration for the cartoon and Margot Robbie stuff. And, what they do with the character right now, I don't know. It's hard to keep track because every time I see her, she's doesn't look like Harley. Or the thing we did and why it was successful, which they haven't figured out yet, is we had 5 years of continuity.
Right.
And the minute Amanda and I were off, everyone did whatever they wanted with the character. So now there's no reason, people feel there's no reason to buy it because there's no consistency with character.
Sure.
And I always have to explain to these guys, I'm like, you don't understand. Comic readers want to feel like this is the one world
right
we're traveling in. And once you put out 30 different books with the same character, they feel like there's no anchor or anything. And although some of them might be good and some of them might be bad, that inconsistency of character, meaning it's changing with every writer that's writing it, is what makes people back off from the character. I remember when Spider-Man was in like 8 books, and I was like, I can't read Spider-Man anymore. Like I liked the regular book, the Mary Jane. I knew the whole cast, and I loved it. And then it became, Spectacular Spider-Man, Peter Parker, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this one's cloned, and that one's, and I'm just like, I can't follow this anymore.
Well, read Batman right now, because I can't even tell you how many Batman titles are out right now.
I don't. There's like 16 Batman, but how many different Batman
There's
books?
2 Batman and Robins out right now.
And isn't the new book like not this reality? It's like another.
Which one? Batman.
Absolute
Batman. Absolute Batman has not. The Absolute universe has nothing to do.
Yeah, it's like a different.
Origins are completely different. Batman is friends with the Riddler and Killer Croc, and that's like his friends growing. He grew up in an orphanage, and he's friends with all of the villains. It's very different. And it's let me tell you,
we used to call them Elseworlds. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
It's an Elseworld, and it's #1 every single time it comes out.
Well, it's Batman.
#1. It's Batman. It's been #1, and those books are. If you look at the top 10 every month, 5 of the top 10 every month are the Absolute books, and 3 of the top 10 are the Ultimate books at Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you use the words absolute and ultimate, it's kind of hard to turn. I know when I buy laundry detergent and it says ultimate or absolute, I know that's the best laundry detergent I can get.
It works.
But I'll go back to the same thing. It's like with all these Batman books, there's and I get that people buy them, and I feel sometimes it's a reflex for them. They've just been buying them so long.
Yeah.
But same with X-Men and stuff like that. When you break up all this continuity and you keep thinning it out, it weakens the characters and it weakens the titles. When we did Daredevil with Marvel Knights, we were consistent. We stayed. The other series ended and we continued, but it was like a continuing on. And Daredevil never had 5 books. It always had like 1 or 2 tops, right? They did a miniseries. But I think, it is corporate greed, right? Because when we were doing Harley, they wanted to do 50 other Harleys. And we told them, we said, we are the ones that write Harley right now.
Yeah.
So if you want to do a guest star book, we'll do it. We'll call it Little Black Book and we'll do annuals. But other than Suicide Squad, you can't put her in every other book because it's going to kill the character for us.
Yeah.
So this continuity is so important. It's so funny. We're talking, and who's calling me?
Is that Bill?
Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz. Yeah. I'll call him back. But how funny! He must have heard me talking. How weird is it? Because he doesn't normally call me all the time. So,
well, when you do talk to him, please let him know that I truly loves Stray Toasters.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah, and
that's his favorite book, so he'll love to hear that.
I had a collection of it. I don't think the collection's it got destroyed in a move, and
Got
I
destroyed in the storage.
the
Probably.
storage unit, and I don't think it's in print anymore. And I've been trying to
No,
get.
you could probably get a retailer to find one for you, or eBay or something.
Well,
But if
I'll buy the trade. I don't care.
Well, if you see Bill at a convention, you bring him the book and say, "My dream is to have a toaster by you." He will draw a toaster on the inside of that book because that's like
awesome.
something nobody asked him to do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, I loved his big numbers, but unfortunately, they never finished that book. They did 2 issues,
Yeah.
and he just sent me some poetry. Okay, I don't know what that means, but it's pretty funny. Anyway, but no, he's a great guy, and you can find that book. I don't know if they ever re-released it. I don't think they did. Right? It just
I bought a trade actually bought it on Sullivan Street Comics was still open. I bought it there, bought the trade because I had heard of it for years, bought it.
Yeah.
And then I was moving from one house to another not that long ago, and a bunch of stuff got ruined by bugs in a storage unit. It was terrible. So I lost a lot of trade paperbacks, a lot of books. And that was one of them that went, and I went to buy it again, and I couldn't find it
And
anymore.
you haven't seen it at conventions either.
No. I haven't seen it at
the world depends on us getting our comics destroyed at one point or another.
Sure.
Like it usually sends moms for that job,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's mold and rotten water.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine does construction up in Harlem area, uptown Manhattan, and he pulled down a building. They pulled down these walls of a building, and the walls of the first floor were insulated behind the wooden glass wall with millions of comics
Yeah.
Really?
from the 1940s.
Oh,
Yeah.
He said he would touch them; they would just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disintegrate.
you
Yeah.
couldn't even do anything.
But
with
he'd seen Superman. He says I could see this. He says, but the minute you touch it, it just starts falling apart.
Yeah.
And I was like, how horrible.
Oh, that is horrible. Heartbreaking.
Yeah, I had a friend who bought a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights about 20 years ago, and they were renovating it, and they pulled some not comics, but a lot of like
Newspaper.
newspapers,
I get that
at
my house.
old pulp magazines.
It's insulation, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cheap
I mean,
insulation.
we during during World War II, there were paper drives and there was metal drives, and so people recycle, and that's why we don't have a lot of the Golden Age
Yeah,
comics, is because they were used for the war effort,
Sure.
right? And but people did use them in New York and big cities. They used them for insulation because they would throw out comics. So
Imagine if they knew now.
nobody kept
They knew
them.
what they knew, what we know now back then.
well, then they wouldn't be valuable.
They wouldn't be. Everyone would have saved them.
No, but if we had the time machine. And we can get together some old dollar bills and $20 bills. We could definitely have a good shopping spree going on.
I haven't thought of that. My whole thing is where am I buying them though? That's the thing. Like I have to get to.
Newsstand.
I know, but how do I if I time travel here from Staten Island? There's really no way to get to Manhattan at this point. The ferry,
No, there is this ferries.
there was no bridges. I was like,
ferry.
that would be in the woods right now. If
All right. Here's the thing: where the ferry is in Staten Island, there's probably a couple of newsstands back then.
You're right. There probably was.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
So they probably had a stack of comics that you can go through and
You solved my time travel problem. Perfect.
There you go.
I'm just saying, because people ask me where would I like to go back in time to see, and I said, I'd like to. Coney Island had a big fire in 1917. That was a big fire that almost wiped the whole island. I'd like to go there in 1916.
Yeah, see it.
And on a summer night and see how wild that place was.
Yeah.
Because Edison had a contract with the lights down there, so it was one of the first places that was completely lit up with electrical lights.
Wow.
That's also why it burned down 3 times, right? But imagine, they said 2 to 3 million people would go there on the weekend, and just imagine how that place looked
Yeah.
or smelled.
Awesome. So here's the question. Say you're a New Yorker without saying you're a New Yorker. You'd want to go to 1916 in Coney Island.
Coney Island, yeah.
Only a New Yorker's answer.
Yeah, because you want to see things that I see pictures and I'm like, it looks like it's overwhelmingly better than Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Like they built these giant buildings, and there was a giant wooden hotel down there that had like 1,000 rooms or some crazy shit. Like it was so different than now.
Yeah.
And what
you
year
know,
is Nathan? Nathan's is open at that time, right? They open in
Nathan's is open. So
1906 or
so there was
something?
actually before Nathan's, right across the street from where Nathan's was. You know Coney at all, right?
Yeah, of course we do.
Okay. So right across the street, there was a theater on the corner.
Right.
Okay. Still there, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In that building, in the bottom part of that building, was the first big Coney Island hot dog stand.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is the Nathan's guys, they moved in right across the street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they competed. Okay. So, and the prices were the same. But what Nathan's did is they went to Coney Island Hospital, which was on Coney Island Avenue over there.
Sure.
And they told the hospital staff, if you come to Nathan's wearing your hospital gowns or your doctor's outfits, we'll give you everything half price.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Mm.
So what happened was every day, Nathan's was filled with doctors and nurses eating their food there. And people were like, they know something we don't.
Oh,
And eventually they put the place across the street out of business.
that's amazing.
It was a brilliant marketing move.
Yes, that is brilliant.
I know hundreds of strange facts
That's
like
great.
that because I love history. I love researching stuff. You know, I know stuff about how Kennedy won the election in New York, how John F. Kennedy won over New York. Like simple things. What he did is he got a group of a couple of hundred young, handsome men in suits, and twice a day, rush hour and rush hour at night, when people leaving, they would go in all the buildings down on Wall Street, 2 at a time. These men would go in there and they would have conversations in the crowded elevators talking about how great Kennedy is. And they'd say, well, I'm going to make some money. Once this guy's in office, we're going to make some real money. He's going to and they would talk to each other for 30 floors, 40 floors, and people in the elevator, in crowded elevators all day, all over Wall Street.
That's genius.
It's a dark genius.
It's dark genius.
Because you could do so many bad things with that too.
Right. But that was part of his campaign. So it's like, I love stuff like that. This is, of course, before the internet, where we just dump information.
Right.
But you know, the problem with the internet and the problem with everything now is we don't believe anything now.
Right. Exactly.
And then AI is going to make us believe even less. And everybody has doubt. Like, I don't know if that's real or not. I mean, how many times you look at stuff, you go, I don't know if that's real. You think that's
all the
real?
time now.
Constantly.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, aliens literally can land here, move next door, and there's going to be people that go, that's fake.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Half the world will question it. They're like, no, that's AI. That's not.
I think AI was introduced by aliens to make us doubt all reality, so they could take over without actually having to lift a gun.
It would work perfectly. It'd be easier than the body snatchers.
100%.
Right. Yeah. And this is how we write comics, guys.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Call Bill Sienkiewicz back, please. And
I will call him back. It was his birthday the day before, so I left him a nice message. I'm thinking he's just being polite and returning it.
But thank you for taking the time with us. Anytime you want to come back on and promote anything, let us know.
Appreciate it, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Before we cut it off, what are the two things people are looking for right now? We're looking for pop kills.
Pop kills.
Right. Oh, and Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger.
Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger. There we go.
Elvira and Harley Quinn coming out in July.
Right.
Yeah, these are both in the stores now, but they're monthly, so that next month there'll be the new one and whatever.
Great. So go to your local comic store and look for those.
And then Harley
and Elvira, which I know I'll buy because I love Elvira.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Anytime. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.